Yeah, so the way this will work is James has pushed a new question I've never seen before to frontend eval, and so we'll just go on frontend eval and we'll read it. Frontend eval is a site that James and I are building to do interview prep for frontend. So I'll be doing this question that I've never seen before, and James will be walking through it like a real interview. So I'll click into this, and then James, why don't you read me the prompt, and then we'll go from there. James.
Okay, sorry, just unmuting everything. I'm back again.
Okay, this is the prompt, I guess. It looks really simple, but I'll probably have some questions as we go along. Sound good?
Yeah. I mean, if you want me to kind of like treat it like this was a live front end interview and kind of throw at you, you just want to work from the prompt, either's fine.
Yeah, no. We'll treat it like a live front end interview.
Okay, well, brief intro then. Obviously, I'm James, JRobinDev on Twitter, senior front-end engineer at Airbnb. Mike and I have worked together a couple of times over the years. I did the self-teaching route, like I'm sure a lot of you did. I actually did a boot camp back in 2014 when they were new and unproven, and there are a lot fewer of them. So yeah, that was my very abridged route into engineering. But yeah, as Mike said, gonna go through one of these questions that I wrote and published just last night. Hopefully he hasn't taken a peek yet, but here it is. It's a working analog clock. Wanted to produce something that was like a nice mix of some interesting CSS and some JS in there as well. So yeah, the prompt is just displaying the user's time in the current time zone with an hour, minute, and second hand. See how he gets on with that, and then we've got some interesting challenges that we can extend to that if we make good progress. But yeah, take it away, Mike.
Cool, thank you. Hello everyone in chat too. Hello, Annika's here, and Lily and Jennifer. Nice to see everyone. Okay, so I am going to ask some questions now. So typically, after you hear the prompt, when you're doing an interview, you should stop and ask some questions. So I guess like I have two questions. So one is, do we want to see the numbers and so I'm gonna actually pull up a picture of an analog clock. How much of this crap do we need? Like, do we? Yeah. I assume we want the numbers and the minute and the second hand. Are the numbers a nice to have, or are they a requirement?
Yeah. So for now, we'll just go from the mockup itself. So if you jump back to the mockup quickly. Yeah. So all we need is a nice blank clock face with hours, minutes, seconds, hands. If we're talking like pixel perfect, then we want a red second hand, should be 1 pixel wide. A black minute hand should be 1 pixel wide. Both of those should stretch to the edge of the clock face, and then the hour hand should be 2 pixels wide, black, and let's say that should be like 75%. I should call it 50% of the radius of the clock face, the edge of the clock face. Does that make sense?
Yes. Can people read what I'm typing? Yeah, sorry, Ellis. I'm gonna turn off James in a second once I get started. Can people read what I'm typing? Okay, this is pretty large now, so hopefully people can read this. Okay, great. Wow, there's so many people here. Hello, everyone. Yeah, James is using a headset, so I don't know where the echo is coming from. Mike? I have no idea. So hopefully, I'm just gonna keep him muted until I have any questions for him, and I'll just gonna get started. That way we can hopefully fix the echo later, preferably after this stream is over. Okay, so here's another pro tip: take notes when your interviewer is talking. Do not rely on your memory. I have had a lot of candidates try and like impress me by memorizing the spec. It does not impress me. I would rather people take notes. So pro tip, just take notes, whatever form. I usually do comments in my code, and if that's available to me, or I use a notebook. But do not try to memorize the spec. So I am actually going to start up tmux. So I'm going to do this in my terminal. I just undid all my zooming. Can you tell it's my first stream? All right. Okay, so let's pop open an index.html. So I just put some boilerplate in here because I didn't feel like it would make sense for people to watch me type a bunch of boilerplate in. Okay, so let's start with the HTML for this. And like pretty much, I'm just going to have a clock. And inside, I'm going to have the minute hand, the hour hand. I don't know why I did in this order. And the second hand. Okay. I'm going to open this in my browser. I'm going to zoom in a bit in a second. So on port 304. I'm just going to type some text in here to make sure this is all working. Great. Okay, so let's draw. I'm going to start with some CSS, and then I'm going to go in and do the animation to make the clock move. So I'm going to start by just like creating the minute, hour, and second hand. The way that I'm thinking about this, and I've never done a problem like this before, and I'm not sure that this will work. So I'm thinking of having the hour hand. I'm thinking of like basically using the rotate CSS transform to make this work. And I'm going to have, so I'll start by making the clock face and then we'll go from there. But I'll have the hour hand, the minute hand, and the second hand inside of divs that are overlaid in the clock that take up the whole clock face size. And I'm going to basically rotate the hands around that. It'll probably make more sense once I start doing this, if this is even like a viable strategy. So let's hope it is, and that I don't screw this up for the stream. All right, so I'm actually really nervous now because I'm not sure I know how to do this, but we'll find out. Okay, so I'm gonna add a border around this, 1 pixel solid, black. I'll make this 2 pixels, and I'll add a border radius of 50% to make this round, and I'm going to do a width of 400 pixels and a height of 400 pixels, and I'm going to set this in the middle of the page. And that didn't do anything. I'm just going to make the background color just to see if this is like working at all. All right, it's not working. Because it doesn't look like my CSS is being applied at all. All right. Great. Great. Okay. So it's working now. I just had to refresh my cache. Mike says I should not do this on my next stream. I agree. I should not even do this on my stream. Okay, so I'm gonna set a top margin on this just to push this down a little bit. And I'm gonna get rid of that background color. So I have my clock face here. I'm just gonna look at the spec real quick. I'll make this a little bit thicker. Probably doesn't matter, but okay. So okay, let's create the hands first. I think what we want to do is, so I want to create like a hand container class. I'm just trying things out. I'm not actually sure this is going to work. So I'm going to try creating a hand container class that is absolutely positioned inside of the clock face. And by the way, feel free to ask me questions you have. I know that I'm not really doing much right now, but if you have any questions about my approach, feel free to ask. I'm going to make this background color red again, just to make sure that this is working. Okay, so also I'm going to set box sizing, border box, and everything, just in case this becomes relevant. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an hour hand that is 50% of the height of its container, and I'm going to set it in the middle of the container, at the top, aligned to the top and in the middle. And so yeah, I'm actually going to start with the minute hand because I think that is easier because it goes all the way to the tip. So let's do that real quick. 50%. And it is 1 pixel width. And top 0. Let's just see it. Let's just see what that does. Oh, this is, and I need to get rid of this background color. That's not doing anything. Let's find out why. That's a good question, Alyss. It's so these will all be in their own hand containers eventually. Um, I'm actually not sure that's the right approach. Let me come back to that. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to do this with pseudo elements in the long run, but let me play around with this a little bit more. The reason is it's really like the thing that's going to actually rotate is going to be the hand container, and the minute hand and the second hand and the hour hand are just going to be inside, and they're going to represent the styling for the hands. I think it'll make a little bit more sense once I get this working, but right now it's like not working at all. Yeah. Okay. So that's my minute hand, and I'm gonna position it in the middle now. So I'm just gonna do this translate. This is a trick to center stuff in CSS. Left 50%, translate x negative 50%. So that pulls it into the middle. So that is my minute hand. This is looking really thin and small now. So I think I'm gonna make this half the height, half the width, like that. Okay, so cool. I will. Hello, hello, Steve. Nice to see you. All right, so I will do something similar for both the second and So yeah, like let me think about how to position structure these now, because now I think like this solution will work. So if I were now to apply this rotate, so this is really what I wanted to do. This is what I'm anticipating doing throughout the entire course of this problem, is rotating this around the clock. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense now, like what my actual approach is. And so yeah, the hand itself inside of here is just going to be represent the styling for the hand, and that the container, which I'm not tied to these names, is going to represent the rotation of the actual hand around the clock. And so my plan is to basically use JavaScript to manipulate this part of the situation. Um, and yeah, like I think that will basically solve the entire problem. So like once I'm done styling this, I will move on to the JavaScript, and I'll use basically set interval to rotate the hand around the clock. It's good to ask your interviewer if you're on the right track, but and I think I will now. James, am I on the right track? I'm only leaving it muted because of the echo, and I already see that it's happening. So I apologize, everyone.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm muted or unmuted right now, but it's you have the right approach so far, and I think you're taking a good approach by working out in CSS first before jumping into any JavaScript. So yeah, on the right track.
Cool, thanks. All right. Yeah, feel free to drop any questions so far if you have any. So I'm going to actually, yeah. So I'm going to turn these into pseudo classes, because it doesn't make sense to have two elements in here if they can use a pseudo class. So I'm going to do that real quick. I probably shouldn't. I'm actually not going to spend any time doing this until later. I'll like do that in the cleanup phase, because right now I think like I have a working solution. It'll be easier to. And this is another ding pro interview tip. If you are in the middle of something, do not try to clean stuff up until the end. It's much better to get a working solution that's messy than to have to try to clean things up and make them immaculate. Like there's a lot of duplication that I'm going to be doing between these things, but I am not going to worry about it right now because I just want to get it working. So this is going to be red. And James, I have a question. What hand is on top if they're all overlapping? Is it the second hand?
Yeah, I think traditionally, I haven't actually thought of this one, so that's a good clarifying question. I think traditionally the hour hand's at the back, and then the minute, and then the second hand on top.
Cool, that sounds good. I'll need to actually play around with that later to fix that, but we'll start there. All right. Cool. So let's see if this is working properly. Yeah, so the second hand is on top. And then we have one more hand, and we'll just make this the hour hand. And so this height is going to be different. The width is going to be different. So the width is 2, like according to the spec. The height will be 70% of 50%, which is 35%. And that is bad because now we are okay. So this is going to be black. Let me just hide these other two hands for now. And whoa, what's going on here? I just dropped my mouse. Classic interview stuff. All right. Okay, so let's fix this hour hand. So we wanted to right now it's let me just remove this rotation real quick. Right now it's positioned top, which is not what we want. We want it to be in the middle. So I'm trying to think about what the best way to do this is. don't know. I think, I mean, there are ways I can do this. If I set the top to like the top of this one to 15%. I'm sorry. Let me see. Yeah, if I set the top of this to, yeah, 15% won't do it because it'll be 15% of, yeah, this isn't gonna work. Oh, does that work? Yeah, I think it's 15% of the parent container, which makes this work. Okay, that works, I guess. Yeah, that works. Okay, great. It's always nice when things surprise you by working when you didn't know that they'd work. Okay, Tech Nerd DJD asks if this is a typical problem for someone to solve if someone's looking for a junior position. Um, I would say this is a medium difficulty question, and you might be asked to solve something like this, but you might not be expected to get the whole answer. Like, honestly, if your interviewer is good, they'll really be looking for like to understand your thought process and not for you to get the question correctly all the way. So I would say that, and this is like definitely true when I interview juniors, is I ask them the same questions usually, and sometimes I don't. Like sometimes it's there are specific questions for juniors, but like I think it's important for you to clarify like what is the goal of your interviewer asking you. Um, is it for you to get the question right, or is it for them to see your thought process? It's usually the latter if they're being fair. So, yeah, just a disclaimer that like this is this is if I were asking this of a junior, which I wouldn't probably, but I would not expect them to get it like all the way correct. Okay, so everything looks like it's working from a CSS perspective. I'm going to start doing the JS. So I'm going to do. So I'm going to make this 0 degrees to start, and I'm going to create a CSS variable to encapsulate this. So I'm going to call this rotation, and I'm going to use this. I'm going to basically manipulate this via JavaScript. Okay. So I'm going to attach. So basically, if you recall, yeah, we're going to be using the hand container to manipulate the rotation of the hands around the clock. So I'm going to create this rotation. Actually, no. So I'm just going to set that via JavaScript, but I'm going to create these IDs to target within my JavaScript. Mike's asking a really rude question about Tailwind. It's a Mike knows that I'm a pretty hardcore Tailwind apologist, but the short answer is I don't need Tailwind for this. Okay, so let's just make sure that so I'm gonna just to review. I added IDs to this. The reason that so there's a little bit of duplication now. The IDs are the same as the classes for the hands underneath. I always use IDs or like data attributes or something other than classes to target classes or to target elements in my JavaScript. I don't like intermixing classes and like I don't basically like if I were to basically select like the hand container that contains second hand in JavaScript, that would make it so that my JS and my CSS are intertwined. That's never something I want to do. So happy to answer more questions about that if anyone has them, but don't worry about it too much for now. So I'm going to create some selectors for my minute, hour, and second. And let's just log these. Why I missed TypeScript. Just make sure we have them. Great. And let's just practice. Let's just make sure this works, where I'm going to just set the... I'm asking Google how to update a CSS variable. I'm pretty sure I just like do style, yeah, set property. So I'm going to do this practice setting property on rotation. And I'm just going to set this to 90 degrees and see if this will rotate my hour hand. Really. Great. So yeah, now I have control of my hands in JavaScript. And I'm just going to do the minute hand real quick just to... Great. Okay, so that's what my clock looks like. Now I think this is the challenging part. Basically, I need to calculate the rotation of the hand. James, I'm thinking we should change this to a hard question. This is not a medium question. So we can go and do that in front of eval a little bit. But there's difficulty levels in front of eval. This is not medium. I mean, I guess it's medium if you know exactly what you're doing, but most people don't. So okay, I want to let's just start by getting I want to start by setting the rotation for the current times, for the current time, like whatever time we're in. And if I think about the way to do this, so I'm going to create a function called set rotations. And we're basically going to want to call this every amount of every certain amount of time according to an interval. So in order to calculate these, so the rotation of the second hand is going to be based on the current minute that we're in. The rotation of the minute hand will be based around the current hour that we're in, and the rotation of the hour hand is going to be based around the 12-hour period that we're in. So there's 360 degrees in a circle. So let's start with the second hand. So the second hand is going to be, so if right now it was like 50 or like 30 seconds in, it would be rotated 90 degrees. So there's 30, man, this is hard. Okay, so there's 6,000 milliseconds in a minute. And Rocco Dev says seconds divided by 60 times 3.6. Yeah, I think that's basically what we're trying to do. But we need to do it in milliseconds. So the second rotation is going to be 60 times 1,000 divided by 360 times the current second that it is. So I'm going to do now equals new date. And I believe that date.get second is a thing. I don't know if that's a thing. Let me just check real quick. Seconds. So this will be 7 times, yeah. So if we were doing this here, that is definitely not correct. Oh, that's definitely not correct. So this is 7 times, yeah, I'm doing this number wrong. I think I just basically should be using whatever Brocco Dev said. 7 times, yeah, so, okay. I'm going to just try this formula, and I'm going to reason through it after. That looks like it didn't work, Brocco Dev. So 7, okay. James has offered a tip off mic to me, but I'm going to show him. I still have like 20 minutes left, so I'm confident that I can get this. All right, so um, there's 360 degrees. So I basically need to calculate what percentage of 360. Yeah, I'm like pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I'm on the right track here. So seven. Okay, I'm actually gonna get out a piece of paper to do this. I'm not very good at math, so if it's 7/60, then it's blank over 360, and I'm just gonna cross multiply. So I'm pretty sure it's 7 times 60. Wait, no, that can't be right. 7 divided by 60. That is almost what Brocco said, but something is wrong. Uh, yeah, so 7 divided by 60 times 360. Yeah, okay, great. I'm pretty sure it's this. um, there's probably a better way to write that formula. I'm just going to set that real quick. That doesn't look like it's working. Let me actually just check to see if this is being set properly. No, this is not the right variable. This is still not working. Oh, I'm not calling this function. Date is not defined. This is because it's now. All right, that looks like it's working. Okay, great. That was really hard. I am going to do the same for minute and hour. So yeah, basically the way that I did this was I did some algebra to basically do, yeah, it's like basically 7/60 is how many degrees over 360. And now we need to do that for minute and hour. So I'm pretty sure that minute is like very similar. Um, so if I get minutes over 60, that should be very similar. Nope, that's not right. Oh, this is, I'm not, I'm just gonna copy and paste this. I'm just gonna get rid of that because it's distracting. Yeah, so this is, it's right around 8:43 according to my clock, and this is looking right. Okay, I think the hour rotation is going to be the hardest part. So this is going to be hours. So if I do by the way, this is like I love JavaScript for this reason, is just being able to like play around in here. So I think that just get hours over 12 will do the trick. So I thought this was going to be a lot harder, but I'm not sure this is going to work um, for when we're at like 12 o'clock. But let's check that in a second. Cannot read properties of undefined. Yeah, I keep doing this. Okay, so that is looking like a real working clock. But yeah, like I think there's going to be an edge case uh, when this is when we're at 12. And I don't actually know. So I'm actually gonna create a time that is. Oh yes, the set rotations. Okay. Um, so okay, yeah, I kind of glossed over this. So new now is basically like the current time. So if I do current time in here, you'll see that it's set to 8:45 Pacific. Um, so that creates a date object, and that is set to the current time. And then basically this formula that I created, which is basically yeah, it's like um, the quantity that we're looking at divided by like the total quantity, which is like so for hours, recall that I wanted to figure out like what percentage of like 12 hours that we're currently in. So like 1 p.m. would be like 1 over 12. And then you multiply by that by 360 degrees. So this is like a kind of like a math thing that would be really annoying to have to know. And um, I'm pretty sure if you were doing this during an interview, they would probably just give you this formula. Like, I don't think you'd be expected to know this. Like, this is just like a thing that I wanted to figure out for myself. But I like if a workplace expects you to basically derive this formula like from scratch without like any assistance at all, it's probably not a very good work environment. Um, but yeah, so it's basically like the way that I think about this is how many degrees do I need to rotate it out of 360 in order to get it to the position I want it to be in. And it's basically like the current like unit divided by the total number of units, right? So for hours, it's out of 12 units. For seconds, it's out of 60. For minutes, it's out of 60. And then multiply by 360. That should give you the rotation that you need. And sorry, this is a little cut off. Yeah, so I did that for each of the hour, second, and minute. And then this basically sets this CSS property. So if you go back to, so if you go here to this rotation CSS property, so these are CSS variables. So I created the CSS variable that I'm setting in my CSS transform, rotate, and then this variable. And then each one of these is the number of degrees, and then with degree after it in as a string. And then I just set all the properties. Yes, James is doing a much better job explaining the formula. But Alyssa, let me know if that made sense. I'm going to move on for now, but I'll come back to this if you still need a little bit more clarification. James, I'm going to unmute you. I have a question. Is this like a school clock where the hand rotates like smoothly? The second hand rotates smoothly, or does it tick?
That's a great question, Mike. So the initial requirement was for a discrete movement, which is what you got, a tick. Depending on how much time we've got, we can move on to one of two extensions. One is to make a continuous movement of the second hand, and another one is something else entirely.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll start with the discrete movement 1 second at a time, and then we'll. Sorry, I'm gonna mute you again. And then we'll see about some of those extensions. So the most naive way of doing this is just a set interval. And I'm just going to call set rotations every time, and I'm going to do that every second. This isn't perfect because it doesn't happen right on the next second. But I'm pretty sure this will fulfill the requirement. Is that right, James?
Sorry, I need to unmute several things every time I want to talk. Can you repeat the question, Mike?
Am I done?
For this part of the question. So going back, one extension is to make this a continuous movement, as in if you think about those more expensive, wristwatches that have like an almost imperceptible tick to them, like a continuous sweeping motion rather than like an individual tick every second. So you could imagine the tick being like every 10 milliseconds.
Yeah. So this should be pretty easy to do, I feel. Okay, it wasn't that easy. All right, let me let me figure out what's going on here. So the way I just attempted to do that was to set the interval to something much smaller. And I'm actually going to make sure, like, I'm actually so confused by what's going on that I'm going to make sure that this is, let me see. Whoops. I'm actually just going to make sure this is being called. I'm pretty sure what's happening is it's being called a bunch of times, but like it's not updating. Sorry, I'm not used to my console being this big. Yeah, okay, so it's actually being called a billion times, but I think and let me just check the CSS variable here. It's only updating every 6 degrees. Let me console.log this, because my understanding is that it should. Okay, okay. So what's happening is this get seconds thing is only getting the number of seconds as a whole number, right? So I will need to factor in milliseconds into this as well. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. So I'm going to get the total. Can you transition the rotate? Oh, great question. I could. I think that is not going to give us a. Oh, Michelle Furlingo had to leave. Thanks for joining us. If you aren't already gone. Peruvian Idol's asking. By the way, Peruvian Idol, I stole this stream overlay from him, and I'm very grateful to him. Like I basically contacted him last night, and he walked me through setting this up. So he's a great person to talk to. Like I'm always volunteering people who help me out. If you ever want to set up a Twitch stream, he's a great person to talk to. Peruvian Idol on Twitter. Can I transition the second hand? I don't think that's what we want to do, because I think that it wouldn't give us a super accurate representation of where we are. I also think that, I mean, we could just try it and see. Yeah, I don't even know what we'd do, because we'd have to attach an interval to it, and it wouldn't be accurate. So it wouldn't be accurate according to what we need to do. So I think like the only way that we can do this is through milliseconds. So I'm gonna get like the seconds with milliseconds. Let me stop blocking this stuff. This is bothering me. I'm just going to disable the rotation altogether. Let me see what's available. Yeah, what we could do is like basically just like yeah, I think what we can do is this. So I'm gonna do now.get seconds plus now.get milliseconds divided by 1,000. And that should get us the total number of seconds with milliseconds. and I'm pretty sure that should get us what we want. If I just plug this in here, I'm pretty sure that should get us what we want. I'll come back to that if it works. It did not work at all. Nope, I did not add this correctly. Is this good enough? It's like still a little choppy, but I think it's like good enough for what we want. I'm gonna unmute you so you can tell me if this is good enough.
Yeah, that's great. I actually love Peruvian Idol's idea to use a transition to smooth out the rotation between like 1 second ticks in CSS. That's something like I hadn't thought of in advance. I think that would have been an interesting idea as well. But yeah, this changing the set interval down and then like bringing milliseconds into it, like yeah, this also works great.
Cool. Yeah, I think also like if I'm doing a smooth clock, I would have to do this for minutes and hours as well. But I think this will do for now. If this is like the minutes still tick, and the hours still tick, I think. But I feel like this is like the 90% of the use case. Cool. Any other extensions you want to go over?
Yeah, I'm not sure how we're doing on time. And again, I'm trying to be mindful of how my audio seems to mess up your audio, so I'm limiting what I say. But if you have time, I would love to see numbers on the face of the clock. I know I said at the beginning we didn't need that, but you know, I'm a terrible product manager, and there's a lot of scope creep in this project. So if you want to try and tackle it, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, so I started like 10 minutes late, so I think I have another like 15 minutes or so. I do want to leave time at the end for questions if anyone has any for the Q&A. So I will try for the next like 10 minutes to get this working. I was afraid that you'd ask me this, so I am not 100% sure how I'll do it, but I will give it a shot and we'll see. Okay, so I think like I'm gonna continue with my approach of like having basically I'm gonna put each number in a container the same way that my hand containers are. And just to reiterate, like the hand container is like this thing that is rotating around. It's like this box that just contains like the second hand and it's like rotating around. So I'm actually gonna do something very similar for the numbers. And I'm going to rotate them around the clock according to how many degrees that I'm basically going to do transform rotate the same way that I've done it for the hands. So I'm going to turn off the hands for now, and because I think it's like pretty distracting, and I'll try to get these numbers working. Okay, so let's go back to the HTML. I'm going to create 12 numbers. And I'm just going to use quickname macro to do this 12 times. And I'm going to be positioning absolute all these so I'm going to set like 10 pixels from the top. And these need to be similar to the hand containers. I'm just gonna copy all these styles. Why is it not working? Okay. So yeah, these all collapse into each other. I'm just gonna comment these out for now. So we'll start with one. We'll try to just say, oh yeah, so this will be like left 50%. Translate X. That's not right. Oh, yeah, that won't do it. Yeah, this is okay. So I'm gonna set these as I'm not gonna do anything too fancy here. I was gonna do something fancy, but I don't think I have time to do anything fancy. I'm gonna do the same thing that I did. This isn't great to have to create all these extra classes and stuff, but sorry. This is basically what I found was like I want to be able to position the hand, like the number inside the container the same way. Like the container is always going to be the full width of the clock and the full height of the clock. But and so like I'm going to rotate the container again. And the number inside it, like I want to position it like they're basically the same exact thing for like that the same exact rationale for the hour hand and the second hand, the minute hand. I want the container to be the overarching thing that covers the entire clock face, and then the number is going to be positioned inside it. Very similar to the way the hands work. So yeah, I think like basically like the hand container and the like this is really just like a clock thing container at this point. But I'm gonna just like call them two different things for now. There's a lot of cleanup I could do, but I'm not gonna do it right now. Yeah, like this is pretty much gonna be the same like deal as the hand. Like I'm just gonna add the top equals 10 pixels instead of whatever the current thing is, and then yeah, so this should confused. Oh, these are needs to be position absolute. Okay, 10 pixels looks like it's too much. I'm gonna do 5 pixels. And then I'm gonna rotate. I'm gonna rotate one of these, or yeah, I'm just gonna like comment all these out and just like deal with the one. So these containers will be rotated a certain amount, and the interior of the container will be rotated the other way. That way, like, so if you look at a clock, like the numbers don't, the numbers are all facing vertically, right? So basically like I'm going to rotate the container and then I'm going to rotate the number back that same amount of degrees. And let's try that with one where we rotated 90 degrees and I try to rotate the number back. So if I set this style equals our rotation equals 90 degrees, right? This should rotate it 90 degrees, right? And then, so I want to rotate this number back the negative amount of that degrees. I'm not 100% sure this will work. So I'm going to use calc and then I'm going to multiply by -1. That's not it. Actually curious why that happens. It's because I have not put the appropriate number of params here. I'm not sure I'm doing this right. Let's see if I can use calc in transform rotate. It looks like it should work. I think what's happening is I'm trying to multiply 90 degrees, which is a string, by -1, which is not going to work. I'm going to ask James a question, which is, do I need to make everything face vertically, or is it all right to just make it laid out around the clock? Like I've seen some clocks that do this, like a watch with like Roman numerals. So I'm going to ask that question.
My preference would have the numbers all facing vertically. But if you can get them just all displaying, in their own outwards positions first, like we can accept that as an extension too.
Okay. I'm gonna see. Yeah, I'm gonna get them facing outward first, and then I'm gonna try to rotate them later. And then I could do this in the HTML where I just like set all the rotations this way. So I think it would make more sense to do it in JavaScript. But like in JavaScript, it does have the annoying quality that I need to wait until. So I think like it actually makes sense to like generate these number containers inside JavaScript if I'm going to be setting the rotation inside them anyway. So I think I'm just going to do that. I'm going to create a generate numbers function. So I'm going from 1 to 12, and I'm going to append. So I'm going to like create a clock variable. Duplicate the clock ID, and then I'm going to create a div with hand container class. So this is like the number container. And then I'm going to put the number, I'm going to create, I'm going to set the class names of these things. And I'm going to put the number inside the number container. And I'm going to put this whole number container inside the clock. And I'm going to set the inner text of this number to I. I is the actual number that we're on. So let's see if this works. It didn't work. Oh, I need to call this, I'm pretty sure. Yep. Okay, so that is working. And then I'm going to get rid of this rotate for now. We'll come back to this, like James said. And then we will set the rotation of this. The number container style.set property rotation, and then we need to calculate the rotation, which will be, so it'll essentially be the same as the hours rotation calculation. So it's I divided by 12 times 360. And I think that will just work. Nope. But why didn't it work? Oh, I need to put the degrees. All right. So that is working. And then I just need to figure out how to do the rotation of the inner number. Any questions about the numbers? Feel free to ask in chat. Okay, so basically I want to, yeah, like I could also do this in JavaScript too, like just basically like duplicate this rotate var rotation, and set the rotation inside the number to negative that. So I'm just gonna start there. There's probably some way to dedupe this. Like there's some CSS masters in here, like proving idle, that will probably tell me that I did this wrong. But I think like this will do the trick for what we want to have happen. All right, that's it. Did I get it, James? Am I hired?
Let me check. I mean, I might need to go over your code first. Can you do okay? Can you do me a quick favor? Can you make your hour hand like 20 pixels wide and show me what that looks like?
I'm nervous now. What are we looking for?
No, you're good. So this was an edge case that I, with my approach, which was slightly different, I hit an edge case where it wasn't correctly centered on that axis, but it looks good on yours. Yeah, it's been interesting. Like I obviously tackled this question myself first, and it's been interesting seeing differences in how you tackled it. I do have some feedback. Again, if the audio quality is really bad or there's massive echo, yeah, please let us know. Mike, if you wanted to walk through that function first, Ellis has a question, and then I've got some minor feedback that I can give.
Oh yeah. Okay, I will walk through that question, and I'm going to defend myself preemptively. Like I think there's a lot of extra HTML elements in there, and there's one other thing I want to do, which is hide the clock before the JavaScript runs. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to walk through that last function. Okay, so the way that I thought about this is basically like generating numbers in JavaScript, which, by the way, like if you see, like when I refresh the page, actually it like loads fast enough that there's no like flash. But if this were to take longer, you just see like a blank clock face with all the like the. Actually, let me load this page from scratch here. Okay, it just loads really quickly. So I'm actually not going to hide the clock, but okay, so what I'm doing is I'm creating, I have this old structure, right? Which is for every number on the clock face, I have a number container and a number inside of it. And the number represents the hour, right? So this, I mean, like there's probably a better name for this too. Number container, number are pretty generic. But this is essentially the structure that I'm going for. And so for every number 1 through 12, I created the number container, which is, so I had this number container, which is this, and I created this number, which is this, and I set the class names for these, like this, like the JavaScript like DOM manipulation syntax is like really clunky, but this is what it looks like basically. Like then on the number container, I'm setting this class, and on the number, I'm setting this class, and then I this text content thing puts the number of whatever I'm on. So like, you know, if I'm on 1, then I'll put 1, etc., all the way through 12. And then I add the number to the number container, which is basically puts this div inside this div. And then I put this whole number container inside of the clock, which is what this line is doing. And then I'm setting the rotation of this. So I use a very similar rotation trick with the hour rotation calculation, which is like for every single one of these, the number is you know, there's 12 units, and I divide the current number by 12, and then I multiply by 360 to get the total number of degrees that I want to rotate it by. Then I rotate the number container by that number of degrees, and I rotate the number itself by the reverse of that degree. So if you'll see here, I'm just going to zoom in on one of these numbers. So I'll do 10, right? So this number container is rotated 300 degrees. And the number itself, which ordinarily would be rotated along with its parent, I'm rotating it the reverse number of degrees to get it right side up. Hopefully that makes sense. Feel free to DM me if you have any more questions. All right, I want some feedback, James.
Okay, well, overall, I think you did a great job. I think we started at close to like 8:15 or so. So yeah, super impressed that you're able to get through, the clock question and then the other numbers, which are pretty tricky, all in like an hour on the dot. So quick follow-up questions before we jump into the feedback. First of all, if you take a look at your code, can you walk me through, like, if you had a bit more time, how would you clean it up? If this was going to be, put into a PR, what would you do?
Great questions. So one is, I think I would try to. I'm gonna get rid of this. Yeah. So this is like a lot of unnecessary duplication of like HTML elements. I really think that I would love to turn these into single elements. So like I would probably do like an hour hand, and then inside of this I would put like a before element. That way I don't need to use two HTML elements for each one of these. There's a lot of duplication between these, so I'd probably have like a generic hand CSS class, and I would like apply the CSS that's common among all of those, and have like a modifier like hand minute that it just only applies like the classes for the minute hand, which is like specifically the height, the width, and the background color. So those things differ between these. And so if I were to genericize this a little bit, I would like create a hand that has all the common classes, which is like, this stuff, the background color and the position and the top, and then like hand minute would be like this stuff. So that's one thing. Like this, like I would focus a lot of my time on the CSS. Because the CSS is like a total mess. So number container, hand container, like I said, they're pretty much identical. But if I were to extract out hand container, if I were to remove those and like turn them into like a single class with a pseudo element, I would have to figure out how I would organize it a little bit better. But like I think like my primary thing that I would focus on is like deduping the CSS.
Okay. So follow-up question to that. Let's say, and again, no need to code on this one.
One other thing, I would genericize this like rotation function because I use it everywhere, and I would want to like genericize it a little bit.
Okay. Clean up your CSS, genericize set rotations function. No need to code this, but like, let's just talk it through briefly. If I then came along and said, okay, this is great, but we want to be able to show like 3 clocks on there in different time zones.
Yes.
What might you do differently?
Yeah. So I would probably have like a data attribute that represents like the whole clock. So I think like one thing would be I would probably create the hands inside of the JavaScript as well. So I would just be able to like just plop this in anywhere, and like basically create the hands inside. That way, like, yeah. So if I wanted to like plop down 3 clocks with like 3 different like IDs and stuff like that, like I would be able to do that really easily without having to like. I hate vanilla JavaScript for this reason, but yeah, like I would definitely create the clocks inside JavaScript because I want to like not have to basically set up this entire structure every time I want a working clock on my page. So that's one thing. I would like create the hands inside here, create all the DOM structures similar to the way I did with generate numbers. The other thing I would do is not use IDs. Like IDs is bad. It's only good if you're doing like exactly like this toy type of app. I would use something like a data attribute, like data like hour hand, and I would use that to target these because you can only have one. Like you can only technically have one of these IDs per page. So yeah, I would get rid of these like IDs. Use query selector to select these instead, or like to use them to create them. And then I would have like a data, like I would like attach like a data clock here. And then like all these things would change to like document.querySelector all. And then like there's a lot of stuff I would need to change to make this work. But So just as an example, I'm just like butchering my code real quick. But yeah, I would use like, for each, like, for like every, like, let I equal 0, I less than clock dot length, etc. For clocks. Yeah, so I would make it so that like I could select a bunch of these clocks, and then like inside each clock I do all the like hour hand, minute hand, second hand creation, and each one would be scoped to the clock inside it. So that's kind of the main thing I would do. Like, and I would run these like with a like right now they're targeting like these like ID. You'd have to like pass in the clock to each one to make this work properly, and then like each one would just append it to the clock that is part of, rather than operating on like the global scope. Oh, I would say that each of these functions would operate on the clock that you give it, rather than like the global scope of what you're operating on. Like right now that everything's operating on the global scope. But we want to like basically scope it to the outer clock DOM object.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, and final question. You used vanilla JavaScript. Can you talk about why you took that approach rather than jumping to a library like React or something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was supposed to talk through that. This is always like one of the most important questions when you think about that. Like some companies won't even give you a choice, but this is a good thing to think through, like why React would be better or like vanilla. The main reason is I just don't see, like, I don't use React unless I feel like there's a really strong reason to use it. In this case, like a lot of the stuff that we do is around like just native DOM properties. Like basically I'm touching CSS with JavaScript. React doesn't really give me much of an advantage there, I feel. And like I could use like, and also like one other thing is that I'm updating like my DOM every using an interval. I don't really feel like React does that super well. Like it's a little bit clunky. You have to kind of like use effect to make it happen. I just felt like it would be like I didn't see a strong compelling reason for it. I'm curious to hear if you felt like I should like. I'm not sure which approach you used when you were implementing this. Did you end up using React?
Yeah, so I mean, I had the benefit of having a little time to prepare for this, so I tried both ways, and I actually did it vanilla JS myself first, and that was great for the extensions that you did, the extensions you got up to, with the numbers, the hands, everything like that. But as soon as I started getting into multiple clocks, I had to refactor a lot of stuff. When I took the React approach, it was kind of inverse. Like it was slower to get everything initially working, like with the interval and clearing out the timers, that kind of thing. But then when I got into creating multiple clocks, that was considerably easier because I could just work off props for time zones, for example.
Yeah, I agree. I think when it comes to like multiple components, it's always easier to use React. Like I've never seen a situation where it's easier to use vanilla for that. So I totally agree with that. So that's at all consideration. People are saying put this in a code pen. I definitely will after this. I'll tweet it out after as a response. How like James asking if I want more feedback. I think I do. I'm curious like if people have any questions, or if you just want to go through more feedback. If anyone just wants to chime in chat, if they have any questions about like interviewing, if they're going through interviews, or if they have any questions about like the current problem. I'm gonna wait 10 seconds and then I will we can do the rest of the feedback and we can call it a day. Okay, let's hear the rest of the feedback.
Okay, so just jotted down some notes. I think at the start you did a great job of asking clarifying questions. As an interviewer, I really want to hear that you're trying to understand what the requirements are and what I'm asking for. There's nothing worse as an interviewee. Like you start coding a problem and you get partway through, and then the interviewer jumps in and is like, "Oh, actually, I didn't really want that." Like that's something you could have saved yourself like 10, 15 minutes by just asking, a few second question up front. So definitely ask as many clarifying questions as you can think of at first, especially ones like, you asked some that I didn't even think of, like the ordering of the hands over the top of each other. That stood out in my mind as like, oh, this is a candidate that really cares about the finer details. What else? Yeah, the CSS for this question is definitely the hardest part. So good job focusing on just getting something that looks like a clock with rotatable hands in pure CSS before confusing yourself with like, how's the JavaScript going to work? If you're trying to tackle like multiple parts of the problem at once, like you're going to be constantly context switching. It's going to take you a lot longer. So I thought that was a good approach. You also mentioned don't try to clean stuff up until the end. 100%. It's how's the rule go? Like, make it work. I can't remember the order.
Make it work. Make it right. Make it fast.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, just in an interview, just focus on like, these are the requirements they laid out. Like, let's get like a quick and dirty solution first. I can talk through my trade-offs as I go. I can say like, I'm doing it this way. It's like, it's a bit hackier. I understand that. Like, I'll clean this up at the end if we have time. And if you don't have time, you can talk through how you cleaned it up, like we did, and you get pretty much just as many points had you otherwise taken 10 minutes to just refactor it all. Instead, you can spend those 10 minutes like on the requirements themselves. What else? Also, good job focusing on one hand at once. Breaking down the problem into manageable chunks. Like, I was worried you were going to get a bit tripped up at one point when you moved onto the JavaScript and you were kind of trying to figure out like, how am I going to do the hours and minutes and seconds? And you were kind of like, in your mind, maybe trying to figure them all out at once. But then you were like, okay, let's just create a second hand and get that working. And that in itself is like, it's a manageable chunk. It's just like, let's rotate this div like once per minute. That in itself is manageable. In terms of improvement, yeah, I actually would have liked to see you break down the problem first. Like, you asked a bunch of questions, but then you didn't talk about like what your approach was going to be. You kind of like dove right into it. It worked out well for you in the end. Like, you didn't get like sidetracked. So you probably had it in your mind how you were going to tackle the problem. But I see a lot of candidates get tripped up because they look at the prompt and they immediately dive into the code itself. They don't stop to think like, okay, like, how am I going to tackle this? Okay, in your case, it was first I'm going to like create the basic structure in HTML. Then I'm going to like get a clock-looking thing in CSS. Then I'm going to get a second hand working. Then I'm going to get the minutes and hours hands working. Like, worked out great for you. I could see another candidate coming in and just like diving straight in and not really knowing where they should start or jumping between things. So especially for juniors, I love to see like, even like commented in pseudocode, like, this is how I'm going to tackle this problem. These are the core components of the problem. It really helps me. But yeah, as I said, worked out well for you. Your approach worked out well for you in this case. And finally, some code-specific stuff. What did we get here? Readability could be improved a little bit. Like, there's a lot of magic numbers there. This is like minor nitpicking. Like, overall, I think this is good, but I'm really trying to nitpick as much as I can. So for those that don't know, magic numbers are just like pure numbers in the code. So when I look at like, get hours divided by 12 times 360, like, it could be more self-explanatory as Mike's done here. Like, the code is easier to read like as words rather than jumping between numbers. It just makes like more sense to me as like a reviewer or somebody who comes back to this code 6 months down the line, 2 years down the line, and tries to debug a problem in it. So yeah, magic numbers is a good one to look out for. And yeah, general readability as well. But overall, I think readability is pretty good. Like, even minor things like indentation or use of semicolons. Sometimes they might nitpick you on those kind of things. Like, if your code's just all over the place, you might get a bad interviewer who like doesn't like the fact that you didn't use semicolons or something like that. You can ask about like code quality in an actual job. You don't need to worry about it quite so much because you have linters and style guides, and it's kind of codified how you should style your code. But in an interview, you might be doing things one way, and how you're doing things for some reason might make the interviewer cringe. Hopefully not, but something to be aware of. That's really all the feedback I had, even the nitpicky feedback. But overall, thought you went great. Really good job. And yeah, really impressed you managed to get it all done in under an hour. So yeah, you got the job.
Thanks, man. Great feedback. Really appreciate you taking detailed notes as an interviewer, and not just like on Slack or whatever. Yeah, so if anyone has any other questions about this problem or like the interview process in general, we'd love to hear them. Alyssa's asking, thanks, Miguel. Alyssa's asking, thanks, Tim. Alyssa's asking whether comments add to the readability. It depends. I think like rarely on an interview question, I feel like would comments add a lot. Like one thing I see people do is like, and James is right. I should have probably broken down, like I basically started with like breaking down the problem into like, oh, I'm going to do the CSS first, and then I'm going to like break down the CSS approach and do the CSS that way. I did not really do that with the JavaScript, and I should have. Like I basically took notes up here and that was it. Probably what I see a lot of candidates do this where they like they say like, you know, calculate like the rotations for second, like, you know, like 1 second to minute, like, and they just basically like write out the whole spec and then like break it down into the problem that way, and then they like basically fill in around that. That's fine. I think if you want to do it like that, that way you don't like forget anything in the spec. But I feel like on a problem this small, like I rarely feel like comments will add anything to it. It's rather like, you know, I don't know, there's 45 lines in this entire JavaScript file. I don't feel like there's that much value in like breaking down things into comments. Generally, the way I approach comments, like this is like true interviews or not, is the comments should explain like why something is happening a certain way and not like what's happening. Like when you start explaining what's happening, that's like essentially duplicating what you're doing in the code. If you talk about why, that can really add some value if there's something that's like really confusing. In this case, like I think, you know, I could have explained a little bit more about why I'm generating the numbers in JavaScript. I think it'll be pretty clear like what's going on, like set, rotate. I don't know, like these function names could be a little bit more clear. I'd rather do that than like add comments. So hopefully that answers your question. Like I think comments are rarely the way to clarify your code. Cool. Well, if there's nothing else, thank you everyone so much for coming out. Thanks, James, for interviewing me. Please follow him, jrobindev, on Twitter. And check out our work at frontendeval.com. James just launched this new question. Thanks, Sashi. Glad you showed up. Thanks, Lily. Yeah, and I will be doing this like semi-regularly after the holidays. So if you like this, let me know or give me feedback if there's anything you didn't like. Would love to hear anything. Just shoot me a DM on Twitter at genericmikechen. Otherwise, I will call it. And thank you everyone for coming and happy holidays.